What's the time? It's time to get ill as we celebrate the Beastie Boys' breakthrough album, Licensed to Ill. Stay with us. It's going to be a good one.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Weekly doses of the stuff that we hope you like. We try and choose stuff that you like.
Well,
Do
we
you
like it. Does that matter? Does that count?
Well, I hope. Well, at the minimum, so. We need to like it, right? That's the bottom. The bottom.
We most certainly have to like it. Yeah.
If we start doing episodes where I hate this fucking album, like if we start doing episodes like that, we're in trouble. Like we've really hit the end.
Yeah.
Right. We've hit the pot. Then it's time to cash out.
Sure.
For now, we're doing music and movies that we absolutely love and adore, and that ones that inspire us, and ones that hopefully spark conversation or spark some fond memories, because that's mainly what we do is talk about the effect that these records and this music and film and images and moving images have had on us. And we do that every week. So thank you for joining myself and Eric. He was getting worried that I wasn't going to introduce him. I saw the worry on his face.
I never worry about that. I
saw the glare. You got salty with me a couple times. You go, "Hey, are you going to introduce me?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're getting to
it." Well, when it turns into 5 minutes, 10 minutes in, maybe
just endless monologuing and just like, dude, shut up. Like, there's someone else here, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So we are spinning the time machine back to 1986.
Yeah,
Eric and I were. Eric had hair.
I did.
And
I had a lot of hair, actually. A big bushy hair, right? I mean,
wow. Yeah, you were rocking the Permanent Waves. Not the Rush album. Not the Rush album, but the hairstyle.
And all I wanted to do was I should have just kept, what everybody was telling me at the time was like, no, you look like Kevin Bacon. Keep the straight hair. No. I wanted to look like Mel Gibson, which obviously
got the body wave.
Look nothing like Mel Gibson, but yeah, I wanted that kind of, curled in my hair, whatever it was. And, and then I realized I was just wearing a fucking mullet.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And I'm glorified. Like, no, a glorified mullet. That's what it was. And I'm like,
find
wow,
some pictures.
What was I thinking?
there are photos out there. So, and we will find them. I'm going to have to go back into the archives and dig those out. Yeah. I got a perm once.
You did actually.
Yeah. My hair just went straight out. Like
you came. Like, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. But it took quite a few haircuts for it to kind of get back under control. Like it was just growing out. It was
you heard it
crazy
here
stuff
first,
in
folks.
the 80s.
Yeah. We did some crazy shit.
Self tanner, mousse. Right,
mousse. I had the big purple comb right in my back pocket all the time, in the jacket pocket or the back
gel.
Pocket.
I used to gel my hair. 86, prime time, gel in my hair or mousse. Spray tans. I think it was called Sun In.
Yeah.
And I sprayed that in my hair, and I didn't think it was working, so I kept on spraying it. My hair almost got like blonde. Almost looked like Mr. Joshua in Lethal Weapon.
Oh, we're bringing up the Mel Gibson
that was the
references
80s for you, and in the middle of this was 1986 with the Beastie Boys and their debut album.
Oh man,
Licensed to Ill.
This is another one of those records or tapes, I should say, the cassette.
Yeah,
in your car as we're driving, the cruising, man, the windows down, the thing is blaring. It was. Yeah, it's such a
1986 might have been the Plymouth Valiant, or it might have been the what did I have after that? Pontiac, not the Bon. I didn't have a Bonneville. I had a Bonneville, but in between,
you had a Bonneville. You had the van. You had a van at one.
That
point.
Was later.
That was later.
After the Valiant, I had a. Oh God, I can't remember what it was. Can't remember.
You had a.
It was a brown car.
You had a Thunderbird.
Nah, it was like a Thunderbird, but it was brown and it had a gigantic.
No, you had a sky blue Thunderbird, not a Trans Am, but yes, you did. I remember.
No, I never had a
because we
T-Bird.
couldn't because we couldn't fit in the fucking thing.
No, I never had a T-Bird. I had a. God, we could do an episode on cars
was
that
it
I've
was it
had.
a Camaro then?
Well, I had the Camaro. Yeah, we had the
Okay,
Camaro.
there it is. The
Um,
sky blue Camaro you had. Yeah,
and then I
with
had
the
a New
white top.
Yorker. I had a
Yeah.
Bonneville.
Yeah.
What was the other one? I can't remember what it was. It was a wow. These were the days when cars had like gigantic engines, like 350 engines, and just monster.
They were
They were like
tanks.
it was like driving. It was like
Well,
the Road Warriors, like tank
and then our
warfare
friend
on the streets.
Johnny had his famous the LTD.
He had an LTD. That thing was like a boat and a half,
and he had that thing forever. I think it was the only car he ever owned before he actually bought a brand new car. But yeah,
they had it for so long. Remember, he used to have to, when they would fill it up too much with gas, it would smell like gas inside the car. There was like a leak. There was like a leak at the top of the tank or something. So we were like getting like asphyxiated and listening to.
I know the lungs are so messed up today, man. That's probably why.
We're listening to like "Take on Me," and then getting asphyxiated. It was like a rave in that we just needed the neon lights and stuff.
Oh my goodness!
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, the fumes. Anyway,
that's right.
the memories come flowing back as soon as we started talking about
Indeed.
the Beastie Boys.
Yes.
So let's get to it. Let's not delay any further.
Okay.
This was released in November of 1986. This was the biggest selling. The Beastie Boys themselves are the biggest selling rap group in Billboard history since Billboard started recording sales officially in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
This album hit number one. It was the first rap album to hit number one. They are 2012 Hall of Fame inductees. There were 7 singles released from this album. Oh my God.
7. Yes.
Yeah. They just didn't stop.
My goodness.
They just didn't stop. It was also 10 million copies sold. So that's diamond status. And since we're talking about Diamond, let's talk about the Beastie Boys. In the Beastie Boys, you got Mike Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the King Ad Rock, which is Adam Horvitz, and my favorite Beastie is MCA, Mr. Adam Yauch.
Yeah,
that's my favorite. He always looked disheveled. He looked like Mike D was dressed like a rapper. He had like the Volkswagen medallion and the hat. And King Ed Rock dressed like a college student. MCA always looked like he came out of bed. Like it just looked like he shuffled out of bed in the early days. Like his hair was disheveled. He's wearing a t-shirt. His leather jacket's on sideways. Like he always looked like a mess. So maybe that I felt, well,
it's quite the dynamic, right? Yeah.
I felt companionship with him because I was at
I'm glad
in 1986. I was in the same.
Had their own distinct style. That's great. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So 10 million diamond status album from the Beastie Boys. And like I said, they were inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2012. They were the third rap act to go in. So probably, which is about right. They probably, I don't know who got in first, but probably some of the pioneers got in early. And this was produced by, this is our second episode, produced by Rick Rubin.
Rick Rubin, yeah.
Okay, and this is early days Rick Rubin. This is when he just really, was a kid, and he was so much. He was such a part of the Beastie Boys. If you go back and look at some of their videos, if you look at "Fight for Your Right" and you look at "She's on It," he's in the videos. Like he was as much a member of the Beastie Boys. Like he really was instrumental in their career, and he was kind of in on it and in with the group. But he was also, Rick Rubin was also producing Slayer at the same time. He was producing the Rain in Blood album.
Yeah,
and he was just a kid himself. Pretty much out of high school, co-founded Def Jam.
Yeah.
Who would sign, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, Run DMC, and the Beastie Boys, just a sampling of some of the artists that were on Def Jam back in the day. That was just a cauldron of creativity of that burgeoning rap scene. And the Beastie Boys kind of were originally kind of a hardcore punk band. That's really what they were. But then they started like fooling around with like kind of rap and hip hop, like in their live shows. And then they just pivoted.
They found
pretty much to a
found their calling, as it were.
Yeah, to a kind of a rap, a punk rap, if you want to call it that.
They combine styles,
rap hybrid. Sure.
A little bit of heavy metal there. You got some heavy guitar on some of these songs, and Rick Rubin, of course, bringing that in, the warmth of the production. Which, me, I'm not fond of the 80s overall, the high end, like real tinny.
Oh yeah, this has none of that.
This has, bass. There's bass on this record. There's
Yeah,
Yeah, this is,
this is
monster.
metal,
Yeah.
guitar, a ton of sampling. I mean, these guys were like the sampling kings,
Mm-hmm.
and then hip hop beats underneath it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about 1986, and then we'll reminisce a little bit more about how we got into it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. We had just done a Peter Gabriel episode. We just did So.
Yeah.
This came out the same year.
It did.
Oddly enough, we said Rain and Blood. Slayer was working on their album. Rubin was working on their album as well. Rick Rubin producing. That came out. Master of Puppets from Metallica. True Blue from Madonna. They actually opened for Madonna. They were opening for Madonna before this album came out. So they were kind of like, you get those groups that you never heard of. And Madonna, is a New York artist. And the Beastie Boys are firmly NYC all the way.
Mm-hmm.
So she was able to get them to open on her tour. So that kind of brought them out into the spotlight, but they still hadn't released their big album yet. 5150 from Van Halen or Van Hagar.
The debut of, Van Hagar.
A Kind of Magic by Queen. We had just done a Highlander episode.
That's right.
So there's a lot, the Bridge, which would be like the tail end of the Billy Joel kind of era. The great album Rapture by Anita Baker. So it was that soul music was going on. Strong Persuader by Robert Cray. So you started to see some blues hit the charts. The 80s, he seemingly came out of nowhere.
Contemporary blues, on the scene. Yep.
Eat 'Em and Smile, the debut of David Lee Roth. So a lot of different stuff. The Way It Is by Bruce Hornsby. So that's got that glossy sound to it. That's got that slick 80s production, but still a great album. And then The Ultimate Sin by Ozzy Osbourne, Dirty Work by the Rolling Stones. So there was just a lot of different stuff going on. And then these guys just come, kicking the door in.
Yeah.
It's not sophisticated music, even in its execution. I mean, you could tell these guys were 20 years old. Going into, fooling around with drum machines, obviously fooling around with samples. They weren't accomplished musicians yet, but they had ideas and they had really smart lyrics and they had Rick Rubin to help guide them, even though he was a child as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he was,
and what the hell happened to Rick Rubin, man? Now he's like the wild man of the.
Yeah, I mean,
like what? He's got the beard and the long hair, like he's.
He always had the beard, but now it's even longer. Like that's
running around in the woods, like in a cabin.
Yeah, but like in the 80s, Rick Rubin was pretty much doing rap and metal.
Yeah,
like that. He was kind of vacillating between producing Run DMC, Jazzy J, LL Cool J, but then doing Slayer, and he did the Cult.
Somewhere along
he was
the
doing
way,
Danzig, Masters of Reality.
Yeah. So along the way, he said, maybe we could combine this stuff. Maybe we could, there's this hybrid thing happening. And these guys were all over that.
Yeah.
But like you say, not sophisticated music. And it's interesting you say yet that they didn't become great musicians yet, because we'll talk about that a little bit later. But
yeah. This is just kind of rough and tumble, almost jokey. Right, they're almost playing character. A lot of their lyrics, they're the lyrics. It's before rap really got hardcore. This is not like hardcore rap,
right?
Which is probably why it was so accessible to the masses as well. Because some of it was, the videos were goofy. They were acting, throwing pies in the videos. And at the time, people thought, "Oh my God, this is so subversive." But they were throwing pie. They're throwing whipped cream pies in a music video, But it was for me, it was something that kind of grabbed my ear. Probably. Well, the Fight for Your Right. I mean, that was the song, because that was all over MTV.
That was the breakthrough,
and it was a gimmick. Honestly, it was a gimmicky song.
Fourth single. That was like the fourth single. I thought that for sure that would have been the first.
The lead off,
the lead off, but
it wasn't. But MTV picked up that video.
Yeah.
They need that content, and it was just that type of video that was kind of goofy, and the song is actually probably the most gimmicky song.
Yeah.
And really the rest of the album isn't really like it. This is as close as you're going to get to a song proper where they're actually singing.
Yeah.
Everything else is pretty much is rap,
The thing I take away from the record in a whole, I agree with, it was a critic that mentioned that this is an album that embraces life. That there's a joyous feel to this record. It's like the ultimate party album. It's like you put it on and you just, it's obnoxious at times. It can really get under your skin if you're not in the mood to listen to this kind of thing. Absolutely. But then, when the mood is right and you're feeling good and you're loving life, this is the record to put on.
Yeah,
At least it
it's
was
fun.
back then. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
rap was at a different stage. Like
yeah.
early rap was more about like bravado. Like I have the best rhymes, and I got the best look, and it was kind of more about that kind of stuff. And in this album, you hear a lot of that kind of classic lyrical content. They talk a little bit about guns, but not like shooting people. It's like I'll pull out my gun or pull out the jammy, and it's kind of like. It's never, you never take it seriously because their delivery is just
it's tongue in cheek.
It's so tongue in cheek that you're not. It's not like threatening. Like I'm gonna, they talk about, I shot this guy in the back, but it's almost like they're telling a story. It's like, it doesn't seem like it's connected to reality, and and it's kind of, they kind of keep it light in that way. But rap was kind of like that back then. It was more about, who could, like I said, do the best rhymes and who's got the fly look, and all. It was more about the bravado and kind of a little bit of a machismo than it was about, they wouldn't really get into that social conscious stuff. That Tupac and other artists were getting much in the 90s.
Right.
Rap would be a totally different thing. It would take on a life of its own. The Beastie Boys just kind of inserted themselves into this hip hop thing with their hardcore punk roots. And obviously a love of Led Zeppelin, because the funny thing is,
first three songs are
a lot of them
Zeppelin,
have Zeppelin samples, and I remember at the time, because at the time I was not, didn't really know Zeppelin like that. I knew the riffs probably were Zeppelin. I didn't even know this. I didn't know what songs they were until much later, until I heard like The Ocean. I'm like, oh my God, that's the beat. That's She's Crafty. I'm like, wait, that's She's Crafty. So it was kind of fun. Like many years later, I finally got some sense into my head and started listening to Zeppelin. And then I recognized like the samples from License to Ill. So it was kind of very strange.
Yeah. Rhyming and stealing. I mean, that should tell you right there.
When the levee breaks.
When the levee breaks, oh my God, that drum pattern it's iconic, but man, does it work in that song? It's so,
no more apropos title is they're rhyming and they're stealing samples. I mean,
they're not apologizing for it. They're absolutely not. No, they're absolutely doing it.
Yeah.
And their follow up to this was Paul's Boutique is nothing
even
but sampling. I mean, you got 20 samples in one song to make up the song. That is genius, that they could do that. And I was talking with my youngest son today, and I was playing in the album, and I said, yeah, we're going to be talking about this tonight. And he's like, there's no way that this came out in 1986. I'm like, really? I mean, why do you say that? He goes, no, this sounds like something like today, like this, because of the technology today. I said, yeah, that's why these guys were like pioneers, because they were doing this back in 86. And it's genius. It's so well done and well put together and edited. And so he's like, but he couldn't believe it
because they were grabbing influences from everywhere. So you'll have like Time to Get Ill. It's got Barry White, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Led Zeppelin, Steve Miller, and the theme from Mr. Ed sampled in it. Like what? Literally the kitchen sink, but it's just done so brilliantly. Like you're listening to it and you don't know what's coming next. And I hadn't listened to this album in a while. And then when I was putting it on, I'm like, oh my God, like the flood of memories, remembering the lyrics, how just ridiculous they are, but they're also very smart. Like,
no, they are.
They're so of the time, one girl in the castle and one in the pagoda. I got more rhymes than Abe Vigoda. What song is going to reference Abe Vigoda, right? In a rap song, but only in the 80s could you get away with that. But even that was obscure.
And we get such a laugh out of it.
So they have such a background of knowledge and like, what was pop trivia or what was popular. They kind of throw stuff out like that and they put them in the songs and it catches you off guard. Because one minute they're talking about, pulling out their gun, and then they're talking about Abe Vigoda.
Yeah.
The
and mashup aspect is just is astounding. It's like, and they were just starting out. I mean, they weren't really considered, I guess, artists at the time, but they most certainly were. I mean, this was so different. And so, and it just, I mean, I admit, I wasn't a huge fan of hip hop back in the day, but
me neither.
This album just grabs you, man. It just absolutely grabs you. And I don't think that, I think they gained the respect of even like established rap artists, at the time, like black artists at the time, I think have a profound respect for these guys because they do it so well.
And it was
they do it.
authentic. The love was
Right.
there. Like the
Yeah.
love was there. You could hear it in the
Yeah.
lyrics that, because a lot of, especially at that time and true in the 90s as well. But a lot of rap music is about experiences.
Yeah.
And it's about things that happen to people, and their experiences were hanging out on 42nd Street, and going to parties and grabbing
Three
a
Jewish
Miller.
boys like hanging out.
It was about
in
partying,
Brooklyn. Yeah,
right?
like
it was about
Yeah.
partying and having a good time, and those were their
That's right.
experiences, and they were able to relate them and put them into stories like Paul Revere, which I really like, and She's Crafty. It's like they're living together, and this girl, they bring a girl home, just kind of the way they craft all the stories and the lyrics. Like just like the first song, it's kind of has a pirate theme to it, and it's just the way they kind of couch their experiences. They don't just, every song isn't just about them talking about that, but they'll put it into, they'll insert it into stories, like they're the characters of it.
Yeah. Very clever.
And very self-referential, which
even
a lot of rappers do.
their videos would take on a whole new sophistication too.
Yeah, I mean, they're pioneers.
Their anthology DVD is a Criterion release. That's how, I guess highbrow. They're running with the big boys there. I mean, this was a bestseller for Criterion.
Yeah, they did a lot. Spike Jonze in the 90s was directing a lot of those videos for them.
Yeah.
Sabotage, which is not on this album, one of the best music videos just of all time is Sabotage. And maybe Intergalactic might be a close second.
Yeah.
They were at the right time, and very easy to be dismissed. Like they could have been a flash in the pan and be like, kind of like Vanilla Ice. This could very much have been Ice Ice Baby.
Yeah.
Where they kind of peek their head, you got to fight for your right to party. That is a song that is not meant to have longevity. It's kind of come up. It's going to be a novelty. People are going to like it at the time, and then it's going to dip back down. But like you said, it wasn't the leadoff single. It was like the middle single.
Yeah.
There was, No Sleep Till Brooklyn would come out after that. Paul Revere, I think, came out after that. So there was a lot of stuff to go. And these weren't hitting, I think Fight for Your Right was the only chart hit they ever had. I think it was the only one that ever hit the top 10.
Yeah.
But the Beastie Boys had a long and storied career afterwards because they persevered, they evolved, they continued to push the boundaries of what rap could do. They just didn't stay... they could have very easily been that caricature of them. Instead, they became other caricatures. Like in Sabotage, they were like 70s. It was like a 70s cop show, and they're running down the street and driving cars and tackling people.
Probably better than a lot of movies made. I'm serious. No, I'm serious. It was really like, I think of like Boogie Nights when they were doing that parody.
Yeah.
But that's immediately where I go with that. But even so, it was so well done, and it's just great. Great stuff.
Yeah.
And I might add, now was the time to kind of bring it up, like, the later albums, I actually got into like the funky stuff that they actually started playing instruments, and they were doing this like sort of like acid jazz thing that they were, breaking into these funky grooves and stuff, instrumental pieces. I love that stuff. I absolutely love that stuff. I think there's a little piece of that in Iron Man 2 where he's sitting on top of the donut and they're playing one of those tracks from, I think it's from, one of the later albums in the 90s, but it's I really dig.
They weren't hitting the charts as much after, but they became artists, and they became much respected artists. So, also in 1994, Adam Yauch kind of spearheaded the Tibetan Freedom Concert. So that kind of brought them a lot of socially conscious accolades as well, right? That Adam Yauch went to Tibet and he saw how the people were being treated. He goes, well, we need to put together something for them. And there was a series of concerts, and 1994 was the first one. So they kind of matured. They didn't keep this goofy kid persona.
Yeah, you got to grow
doesn't
up.
mean they weren't. That doesn't mean their tongue wasn't firmly planted in their cheek when their music. Like they like to have fun in their music videos.
That's right.
Which is great. It's that youth. It's that exuberance that their music brings. But they didn't stay stuck playing those characters that they played in the beginning. The 20-year-old horny guys and. Doing goofy stuff, that was of that era. And like you said, as they progressed through their career, they would change and mature and make more mature, still making hip hop and the rock fusion and still taking samples from everywhere, near and far, anything they could get their hands on, they were. But they were doing it as adults. And like you said, becoming more involved in actually making the music and playing bass and playing drums, playing a little bit of guitar. But this album, It's almost like a hot mess. I mean, it sounds just like slapdash, but that's what the appeal of it is it's so raw sounding. It sounds not very polished, but
No.
that's the appeal of this music. It's raw. Rap music is raw. It's grabbing a microphone, it's spitting lyrics out.
Mm-hmm.
It's having those samples ready and just firing them off. So it's not going to be polished like it is today. It's a lot more polished, and they're putting him in at the right time. She's crafty. It's just that riff just keep pounding you over and over,
the
like
ocean.
It's just unrelenting. And you just kind of listen to it, and it become they take that one riff and they make it into a song of their own.
There's somebody.
It's not just a sample that shows up. It is a centerpiece of the song.
Absolutely. And there's so many rap artists who try to establish that perfect beat. There's like, I gotta come up, and really what they're, it's really no different than what some of these rock and roll drummers were already playing, like John Bonham. So why try to create your own perfect beat when you have it? So take it and put it in a song, and there it is. It's like, and if they don't have any problem with it, then God bless them, because it's just,
well, they got paid. I mean, back then it was a lot easier.
Yeah.
Samples were bargain basement pricing as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the thing that it is now of, oh my God, we can make a lot of money if we'll let you use it.
Mm-hmm.
Back then it was kind of a novelty. So these guys were just sampling far and wide. Like I said, like Mr. Ed.
Yeah.
It's whatever they were grabbing.
They can get their hands on. Yeah, sure. And
throwing it out there.
This mosaic of a tapestry of all different sounds and establishing a story. That's fantastic. It's just not many people can have the ids to do that, to kind of sit there and just put that together like that. I mean, it's patchwork, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is absolutely music construction, right? Because you're fine.
Just as much as if you were writing your own material, I think.
Because you're laying down a beat.
Yeah,
and then you're kind of they must have been thinking about, well, what sample, what would go great with this, and they're like, oh, Led Zeppelin, and then oh no, the Barry White, they're literally almost choosing from a library of musical knowledge and influence for people that can't play an instrument perhaps, or not very well, this is kind of the next best thing is getting that point across by actually using the artists, we want the riff from the ocean. So let's get it and let's put it in there and just pile drive it.
Yeah.
And that's what that does, and
they were absolutely an influence. I remember when I was going to the Center for the Media Arts in Manhattan. That's where I, studied a little bit of audio recording. And then, we had this one project where we all had to they had a master tape of Rod Stewart's Do You Think I'm Sexy? And we had to whittle that down to, it was like an 8-minute version of the song, and it just kept going. It was and it was meant to be chopped down as for education purposes, for students to come in and have to edit it down to like 3 minutes. And we did that. And of course, most of the kids in the class were like, we whittled it down to 3 minutes, and we just, we kept it as it was, as a single. Some kid came in and he was like, he freaking sampled the thing. The whole thing was backwards. He was playing stuff backwards. I'm like, this kid's amazing. Why are you here? Like, you're already doing it, man. You should be out there. It was amazing. Like, it was like a remix of the song. Like, how did you even do this? Like, with, because you were chopping things away, you weren't adding things. So I don't even know how he was able to do it. And the teacher was like, I think you're getting a little ahead of yourself.
He's probably eating his words now.
Right.
And that's the thing with a new genre, right? We talk about the 60s and rock music, right? And how, there were, you didn't know what the rules were, so you didn't know what rules to break. Like with the Beatles, right? Let's put strings and let's try this and let's run the tape backwards.
Right.
You've got a new genre of music. You've got rap music. And now it's the same thing. It's like, well, what are the rules? Well, we don't know. So let's figure this out as we go along, right? Let's take music that we've heard before. Obviously, they were doing that. The DJs were doing that with the 12 inches and spinning them and scratching and doing all that kind of stuff, right? But then when it's time to put it, make an album proper, or what are your influences? you kind of throw the rules out the window, right? And say, well, let's just kind of see what we want to do and see what sounds right.
Yeah.
And then, and if it works and you're able to, like I said, sample, the cost for samples wasn't that much. So, might have even been cheaper than paying musicians to replicate it.
Yeah.
So it was an exciting time in the 80s for rap music, because it was something that was growing, it kind of grew out of the late 70s, Sugar Hill Gang and Hotel Motel, all that kind of stuff that we used to hear, and maybe didn't connect with, and then the Beastie Boys come and it's a hybrid of the stuff that we were listening to.
Yeah.
Fight for Your Right to Party was kind of like the hook of, okay, here's like a hard rock song, kind of rappy.
Right.
And then I picked up the album. I'm like, oh, this is like pretty much like all hip hop. And I was just enamored with like the smartness of the lyrics. You're smiling. Let me see. I got rhymes Galeem. I got rhymes Galoo. I got more rhymes than Phyllis Diller. Okay. So Abe Vigoda, Phyllis Diller. Like the stuff was just smartly written.
And something like this could be very repetitive too. And it's not. Every song has a different beat, a different shuffle,
and they'll change it up mid song. They'll change it up
tempo. They're they're playing things backwards, like that. You could feel like that vacuum feel, like kind of effect happening in some of the songs. And it's
I think that's Paul Revere. I think
Paul Revere has that. They loop it backwards. Yeah, and it has it's like that sucking.
The hi-hat is like zip, zip.
Yeah.
So it's like a laboratory. And if you've got the right producer that's going to let you experiment and not try and have an agenda. And that's one of the things that people deride Rick Rubin for, is some artists say, well, he's not hands-on enough. He just kind of sits there.
Mm-hmm.
Some artists just need you to do that, is kind of let you,
sometimes you
not
just
to
need
try and control
pair
it.
Of ears, honestly. I mean, you just sit there and it sounds good. You give some advice. Let the artist do their thing. I think it's like, if you put too much of yourself into it, sometimes, get ready. No, I'm not making any kind of digs on.
No, it's horses for courses. Yeah. Some artists need that. They need a helping hand. They don't know.
Right.
But some artists, just want somebody that's going to foster their ideas. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And facilitate. Right. To be a facilitator, a producer,
but if you
most of the time.
But if you recognize good talent from the get-go, I mean, it's, you don't need to, hey, I don't need to hold your hand right here. You guys got, just keep it on. I'm here to keep it on track. Just do your thing.
Have at it.
That's, Yeah.
And that's what I think, that's the purpose that he served, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was kind of that guide, and maybe not that he was such a pro. I mean, he was still a kid too. I mean, he founded Def Jam.
Yeah.
But he was the pro, and just to like you said, be the adult in the room, as it were, of facilitating what they needed to do, and how do we do this, or how do we loop this backwards? Can we try this?
Right.
And it is a lot of musical architecture when you're dealing with samples and beats and loops. There's not a whole lot of musicians in there with take one, take two. It's more assembling this and then making sure it sounds right. As well, and making sure that it flow. This kind of music has to have a beat and a flow to it. There's bad rap out there, and it sounds clunky. What if it can't be presented right, and you just don't have the right vocal acrobatics, it's hard enough for one rapper to do it. These are three guys, and they're exchanging lines. They're coming in. They'll say one word together, and then another. Then MCA will take the next line. I mean, that's also choreography. That's musical choreography. That's not harmonizing where they're singing the same thing. They're throwing a line out. They all land. They'll all land on the same word, and then Mike D will take the next part, and then someone else will pick it up. So you talk about rappers. This was a rap group that did it with precision. It's
vocal musical chairs. It's like a constant rotation,
and it's great because you never know when it's coming.
And you could see that in your head. They're just like there's a mic, and they come up to the mic, and then it's like boom. It's like there's like a revolving. They could be back to back, and it would be like that kind of thing happening. And it's
I think Girls is the only song where there's just one vocalist, which is Ad Rock. I think that's the only one. I think all the other ones, they're just literally passing the mic around, and it's vocal acrobatics, and it keeps you on your toes, and that's what's so interesting to listen to, is because there's three different and they all have a different style,
Yeah.
You know, like Ad Rock is almost goofy. He's almost got a really goofy style to him back then. You know, Mike D was a little smoother, and then MCA was a little like kind of a little bit rougher, a little like almost like a little bit more of a tough guy, a little roughness to his voice.
Yeah.
So they're kind of just changing things, and each one had a different also a different caricature as well. So you know they're trading lines, and then they're putting their character into the line that they're saying too. So you gotta
Yeah.
you know, like Ron Burgundy said, you gotta keep your head on a swivel. Like when when you're listening to it, you know, and so it's engaging you on so many different levels.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Yeah.
listening to the music, you know, spot the reference, you catch the sample, and then you're listening to these really smart lyrics, and then they're also just interchanging and intertwining at a breakneck speed of who's got the next line. Really,
Yeah. And
for
again,
stuff that sounds so thrown together, it's really not.
it's well thought out. And like you say, it is well choreographed, and you know, it is it's a patchwork, but it's God, it's so steady. You know, like it's tight. It is tight. I mean, every song is spot on, and it just you don't feel like there's anything like going off the rails, or because they'll do something, and all of a sudden it's like there's a really great edit, and then it goes softer. Like, you know, there's a sample that may sound a little bit off, like, or a little bit different, but it serves the song. It doesn't you know, ruin it in any way. But and then it cuts back to that hardness, and then, you know, that bass. You know, it's great. And another thing, my son immediately is, the guys that did Lazy Sunday, like Adam Sandberg, like there's most certainly these guys were his. I'm sure his. You know, these guys were his heroes, you know.
Yeah.
So everything he does, I'm sure, absolutely, you know, the whole thing with the, you know, with the SNL skits and stuff was so inspired by Beastie Boys.
Yeah,
no
the influence of the Beastie Boys is far and wide, and they are so well respected and well regarded within the rap pantheon as well. It's kind of like, again, they could have very easily have been like the court jesters of rap. You know, how they just kind of decided to kind of
they kind of were, but they made something of that. You know, they did it on
they didn't do it as like the joke wasn't on them.
Yeah.
You know, the joke, you know, they were doing it because it was funny and it was experimental, their music videos. And it was just like, I was just watching Intergalactic, you know, with the robot and he's fighting the squid in the middle of like Japan, and the fake buildings made out of cardboard.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's like they know what they're doing. They understand it.
Yeah.
And that's why you can enjoy it so much more. And when I was sitting back listening to this album over the past couple of days, I was just remembering, you know, like I said, like the lyrics were just kind of popping back into my head and just kind of remembering. And God, I was like, wow, I used to listen to this album like all the time. It was like absolutely crazy. It was insane. Like in 86. I mean, we said A Kind of Magic, which we were definitely listening to because of Highlander. I don't know how the Beastie Boys got turntable time, but they certainly did. Like I said, that cassette, I had the 12-inch of She's On It, which was like a single that they put out beforehand, not on the album, but in 85, and it was on the soundtrack to Crush Groove. And then they had Cookie Puss.
Yeah.
Which was like one of their underground ones where they, you know, it's a New York thing, and Eric can appreciate this, but Cookie Puss is there's a ice cream chain up in the New York area called, you know, Carvel Ice Cream. It's soft serve.
Carvel, yes.
I guess if you have like Dairy Queen or something like that, if you're listening, it's like that. But God, Carvel is good. But anyway, Carvel would have cakes.
Yeah.
I just had some yesterday.
Bar none.
Yeah. Had a little Carvel ice cream.
The crumbly cookies that you get.
It was inside. Yep, the cookie crunch was inside in the middle.
It's like,
are you driving up? Eric just left. He's driving up.
Well, I mean, they sell them in the stores here, but it's not the same thing. It's not
the same when they're making it in the store.
Right,
so Carvel would have all these themed cakes. It was like Fudgy the Whale for Father's Day and a football. And then they had one called Cookie Puss, which was like it was weird. It had like cookies for eyes and had like an ice cream cone for nose. So the Beastie Boys would, you know, they had one song where they were prank calling like Carvels and saying, "Hey, do you have Cookie Puss?" And, you know, and they kind of put some beats under it. So that was like their first entree into like experimenting with this kind of stuff, was with Cookie Puss. And I have it on, I actually have Cookie Puss on CD somewhere. And then they got onto the soundtrack to Crush Groove with She's On It, which was a really again, that it had that hard rock edge to it.
Yeah.
Which really was, it could easily fit on License to Ill very easily. And it's a really great track, but it's just a single. And then in 86, like they unleashed this album. And I think what I said came out in November. I think by early November of 86, early 87, it had already gone platinum.
Mm.
Yeah. So people
you actually got me into this record.
People were just grabbing it.
The cassette, because like I said, I mean, there was a time when, we would drive around and stuff. And this album just, I mean, how could you not? I mean, it just grows on you. It's got that hook. Every song has a hook to it. I mean, so whether you could sit there and say, I don't like this stuff, but no, it's under, even when I didn't want to admit it
for us, it was the entree. It was the entree into it, because of those samples of the hard rock samples. So it was something that someone that would maybe dismiss rap at the time, be like, yeah, I don't listen to that, or I listen to rock. This kind of fooled you into it. It kind of opened the door and said, hey, you know what, come through here, come check this out. Because normally, me, and we've talked about that. I would buy back then a cassette for one song and never listen to the rest of the album.
That's right.
I don't know how this one made it through. Like, I don't know how this, maybe because You Gotta Fight wasn't the first song. If You Gotta Fight was the first song on the cassette, I probably would. Yeah, you would have gotten through it. But the first one is when the levee breaks, like.
But that, like, the way they kick that off, and then to have She's Crafty as the third song, and then you're getting into like Posse and Effects, Slow Ride. They're actually referencing the Foghat classic. I mean, it's just, come on, and then I think Fight for Your Right was maybe the lead, probably the lead song on side 2 was like,
no, it was actually like the second song.
Okay.
I think side 2 lit off with songs.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. So it's pretty deep in the album. It's,
maybe it did lead off the second side.
So the sequencing on this is very smart. Very, very smart. Cause cause that single, because that's the one that was the song for us, but you have to get through all these other songs first, and that would take a lot of fast forwarding to get to that. So there's no way you can. Yeah, I just kind of listened. Now you could do that, but back in the day, you couldn't. You sit there like okay.
Especially if you had a battery operated device, you didn't want to drain those batteries fast forwarding. It was more economical to listen.
That's right.
Than it was to fast forward. Yeah. And it was just it was just a great. I look back on it now. I'm like, how did this sneak in there? But it was those rock sensibilities that pushed it in there. It was MTV
and again, the production sensibilities too. I think because
now when I listen to it,
I think we were enamored by, especially in the late 80s, as we've always said, how we got into that kind of like producing artists. We were really interested in the way things were made. Probably maybe even a little more so than half the stuff that we didn't even know. Like there's still a lot of stuff to be heard that we didn't know. But we were already into it, getting enamored in these, producers and stuff of people that were.
I don't think I thought of the Beastie Boys that way though. I didn't think of this as a greatly produced. I wasn't thinking about production.
Okay.
With this album, it was just more of an assault. It was kind of like this is just
it is,
so
but
raw.
But production wise, it's raw, but it does have that bottom end. I always say that, but it's like that I want it. I want that bass. I need it in a song that you need it.
I gotta have it.
It's got to be there. I can't stand stuff that's way too tinny and there's hardly any there's a lot of mid range and a lot of high end. It kind of grates on my nerves a little bit. Like I have to have something to balance it. And without that, it's just, but this album most definitely had it. And for something in the 80s, especially around that time where there was lots of pop music, synth pop music was happening and, all that kind of thing. Yeah. It's just,
he was kind of, like I said, he was also producing metal acts at the same time.
Yeah.
Kerry King from Slayer actually was, he was working on, like I said earlier, he was working on Rain and Blood at the same time. Yeah. Kerry King comes in and plays the solo for No Sleep Till Brooklyn from Slayer. So literally in the same studio, in the same sound stage or whatever it is, producing these different acts, and like I said, he brings that sensibility. And then the following year, we'll throw it in there. The Cult seeks out Rick Rubin to change their sound because they had a specific sound, very jangly and very goth and new wavy.
Mm-hmm.
And they virtually recorded their whole second album, Electric. They recorded it with the original producer, Steve Brown. They didn't like it. They go to New York. They seek out Rick Rubin. They re-record the whole thing. He strips everything away.
Yeah.
I thought it was AC/DC when I first heard it because that's how raw it was.
Yeah.
So he's got that ability, like I said, to be that listener and not like the guru that's going to change everything, but to kind of be the I guess the wall to bounce the ideas off of and send them back. And
he's bringing back that natural, almost analog feel to things. And like, let's face it, there were a lot of metal bands, hair metal bands, and that, like, I can't stand that polish or that, I don't know even how to describe that compressed something that, that's the music doesn't breathe. I could feel it like behind, like there's like a sheet of saran wrap around the song. It's like, it's Def Leppard's like that to me. Like a lot of their stuff.
I love that. It's so slick. I love it.
It's just, but it bothers me. I need that stuff to break out and to get those drums out there.
I like the Def Leppard sound because it is so, because it is so encapsulated that it has a tightness to it. That it feels like it, like you said, it feels like it wants to break out. But I like that Mutt Lange, just for Def Leppard, I'm not a big fan of his, but I like for Def Leppard that it's got that restrained feel to it. It feels like they're being held in.
Yeah.
I think it works for Def Leppard, maybe not for other artists, but I think for them, because it gives them it kind of gives them a more polished sound, and that's what Def Leppard need. That really makes the Def Leppard sound, is that kind of slickness and that encapsulated feel. So for them, I think it's good. I think Def Leppard, it's good for Def Leppard.
No, maybe their music is great, but I would much prefer to hear it like full on warm and just sort of like a little bit more raw. That's
but then it's not Def Leppard; it's something else.
Well, whatever.
Right? Then it transforms into something else, unless they're looking to change their sound, right? But those albums with Mutt Lange were just, those are classics. I mean, God, Pyromania and Hysteria.
Hysteria was a big one.
Are two classics, but
I'm sure we'll get to that one at some point.
I'd like to get to one of those. Probably Pyromania. That was around the same time, right? Pyromania was like 85 or 84. We were still in
84.
We were still in some form of school.
Yeah, because I remember Photograph.
Yeah, coming home. That was on MTV every damn day.
Yeah.
Every damn day that video was on.
Yeah.
I would come home.
I love that song. I mean, that's the reason I got the album, was for that song. Joe Elliott's like vocal on especially at the end where he really takes 83. It high, and that was 83. So
83.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get to Pyromania.
Hysteria was like maybe 85, I think.
No, right? It was later than that. I remember thinking about that. I remember thinking about Def Leppard when that album came out, because it was so big that that they took so long for their follow up to come out. Right? Hysteria was 87. It was 4 years later, which back then was a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like back then, we talked about that, where back then artists would just plop out albums sometimes twice in a year, like our Elton John episode was like two, he did 2 in 1 year.
Yeah.
And they used to just kind of, especially when you have a monster album. I remember I'm like, now 4 years is nothing. But back then I'm like, wow, whatever happened to Def Leppard? And are they going to be as popular? And then Hysteria comes out and it's just like, it was like they never left. It was even bigger.
Yeah.
And it was even slicker. That was even slicker. Like Pour Some Sugar on Me and Armageddon. It was just like, wow. It's like eating, like you said, it's like eating candy. But this was not like that. In 1989, the Beastie Boys would part ways with Def Jam because the Beasties were like, we're doing work, we're not getting paid. So they have this monster album, Licensed to Ill. They sign with Capitol Records. They go out to California. They hook up with the Dust Brothers, who are, noted producers at the time. Mm-hmm. They lay down a ton of beats, ton of tracks, and release an album called Paul's Boutique.
Yeah.
Which was basically the pet sounds of the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece.
No one liked it when it came out. No one got it when it came out. They're like, what is this? It's too dense. We don't understand what's going on. And it's only now in hindsight that people look back and say, wow, this was actually something really special. And it was a high watermark for rap, for music, and for the Beastie Boys. And it kind of showed their maturity, and people weren't getting it.
Yeah, already.
People didn't
You would
understand.
you would think that this would have happened third, fourth album in, but this is their second, and well, it's probably my favorite. I mean, I
Yeah,
love the first, but this,
different feel.
it had a much different feel. But man,
Same
it's
same band, and the lyrics are the same. Like they didn't change. It's not like they all of a sudden were talking about voting and revolution. The
Mhm.
lyrics were the same. It's just the feel was different and had a like, and yeah, you work with the Dust Brothers, you're going to get something. You're going to get something different. And they were starting
Yeah.
to expand their ideas, and that was the key for them. They didn't
Mhm.
do License to Ill 2. They could have done a goofy song, and there were no discernible hits. I think what Hey Ladies was on that.
There's only
Um,
2 singles. Yeah, Hey
yeah,
Ladies.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they were taking their career into their hands by leaving Def Jam also, which was significant, right? And they're like, well, you
Mhm.
guys aren't doing right by us, so we're going to go. We're going to follow what we need to do.
Yeah.
And put out an album that really, it didn't sell much at all. Capitol actually didn't really even promote it that much. That was part of the problem as well. Capitol just wasn't behind it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a head scratcher. It's like, okay, what next? And they would just kind of keep going. They literally stayed the course.
Yeah,
And they would just
Shadrach
kind
was
of,
the other single on that. Shadrach and Hey Ladies. Yeah, amazing, because this
hey,
album seems I
ladies.
think it's longer.
Yeah.
It's a longer album than License to Ill, and yeah, so it's kind of like the Tusk or the Pet Sounds, or even
Well,
Sergeant Pepper. I
well,
heard,
the one after that, Check Your Head, had 20 songs
hmm,
on it. So they were just going for, I mean, a lot of them were short. So like little interludes, but that had Pass the Mic. It had So What You Want on it. Ill Communication would come out in 94,
yeah,
which had Sure Shot on it, and had Sabotage, which was just like, that just kind of blew up MTV, and just kind of re-brought the Beastie Boys. Again, it wasn't a hit single like from a single standpoint, but MTV at that point was calling the shots anyway. That was where the decision makers were, and what was getting played and what was getting popular.
yeah.
And then Hello Nasty, with, of course, it came out in 98. Intergalactic. Oh my God, I just love that song. Any song that is going to mention a pinch from the neck, a pinch from in the neck from Mr. Spock. I'll stir fry you in my wok. Come on, man. I
Yeah,
like my
yeah,
sugar with coffee and cream. That's the way I drink my coffee, or my
yeah.
sugar is with coffee and cream. I just love it. They didn't try and change that. Like the Beastie
No.
Boys formula was always the same. These clever lyrics, they just kept getting better at what they were doing.
Yeah,
And I love that. I love that they were able to kind of do that crossover and bring it to people that wouldn't necessarily listen to rap music. That was the key. Is
yeah.
it opened
Yeah.
up me and you by default up to a music at the time that we weren't necessarily fans of, didn't connect with, and certainly weren't in the 80s, in the mid 80s. We were in the middle of the hard rock stuff, the ELOs, the
Mhm.
So came like so. I think Invisible Touch came out the same year. So we were
Yeah.
full on. We were full on in that.
We were, but
You know,
to that point though, but I did enjoy. I was always a big fan of soul and
Mhm.
music in the '70s and such. So I did have an ear for Black American music as well. But the hip hop thing and the rap thing was so new, and so
Yeah.
like I didn't get
Didn't
it
know what to
at the
make of it.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just kind of like this. You're just kind of screaming into a microphone. What's this about? What are they trying to say? But they kind of took it in. Yeah, I guess made it accessible for
Yeah.
for a broader
What
audience.
was it about? It was about having a good time. The Beastie Boys were
Exactly.
just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's have a good time. I'm going to leave as we close. I'm going to leave you with one more lyric that
Mhm.
I pulled from License to Ill. On the Gong Show, we won't get gonged. We're the Beastie Boys, not Cheech and Chong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, I love the pop culture references like that. To me, that's smart because and they mentioned Columbo and another thing. So
Yeah.
they were of their time, and talking about things that people could relate to as well. And that's
Absolutely.
also
I
what
was just
made
about
this
to
album
say
so
that.
great
Yeah.
too. It's so relatable, even though you're getting, for us, hip hop, and that was like a new experience for us. Again, the Beastie Boys made it accessible for us by having those pop culture lyrics and things that we can connect to,
Mhm.
as well, to kind of get us in there. And I'm happy, and thank the Beastie Boys for doing that.
Yeah.
It's such a great album.
It's
It's
a winner.
available on Spotify. There's no special edition. It's just there. So you can get it. Yeah, you can get it in all its glory. Check out the great album cover with the plane crashing into the ground, which is supposed to look like a joint being snuffed out.
Yeah.
A little pot reference in there for you. But
yeah,
by all means, we love this one. This is God, 86 was rife with great music.
It was
and
a
the Beastie
staple.
Boys slid in there, went to number one, and 10 million copies later. They absolutely made a mark on rap, and are absolutely rap and hip hop pioneers. So
yeah.
That's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. Go ahead, find us on social media. Why not? Say hello, stop by and wave as you pass by. Beep the horn twice and we'll hear you. And throw a like on some of our posts. We would appreciate that. New episodes come out each week. And also, check out our YouTube channel as well. Why don't you do that? We've got the video versions of a lot of these episodes up and running. That's fun too. Plus an archive of our live shows. You can only see past live shows on YouTube. We don't record those for episodic consumption. That makes them exclusive. So do that as well. So for Eric, but you had something else?
I have nothing else. You
was
said it all.
I thought you were going to.
I was just about to say good night and
good night. My mother thanks you. My father thanks you. My sister thanks you, and I thank you. If you know that what movie that is from, hit us up on Facebook. Let us know what movie that is from. I guarantee you nobody gets it. You know what it's from.
I do.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it. So that's the challenge. Figure out what, and don't Google it. That's not fair.
No.
If you Google it, that's not fair. But anyway, we appreciate you checking us out. Thank you so much. So for Eric, this has been Dean, and we will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Cooper. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.